Wednesday, July 31st, 2024, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Well, I don't have to tell you unless you really don't look at things, unless you're a hermit up in the mountains somewhere, that chaos is engulfing the world. Yes, socio-economic, geopolitical chaos, and it seems like the powers that be are turning up the volume. And that's what we're going to talk about today, and what I think one should do in such a situation. It's not the end of the world. Things always go in cycles, and that's why I'm going to recommend this latest book by Neil Howe, The Fourth Turning is Here. I will talk a little bit about that and what could be happening in the next few years. I think, unfortunately, the chaos is just starting. And I also like to recommend a poem, which I usually don't, but it's a poem my father gave me when I turned 18. It's If by Rudyard Kipling. And the beginning of the poem says this: if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you. And I think, I'm not saying that all are blaming you or me, but I'm just saying that we need to keep our heads because what's going on in the world is the old strategy of the powers that be, who I think are desperate. And why are they desperate? Well, they stretch themselves too far in terms of debt, in terms of leverage, in terms of criminality, and they're worried, and people are waking up. So they use the old strategy of divide and conquer, and they also use the strategy of misinformation or lying, for that matter. There's also a saying about how the first victim of war is the truth. And I think we need to take a lot of what's going on in the world with a big chunk of salt, especially as it relates to, let's say, Venezuela. Venezuela is in the news, of course. And we in the West are ready to call that the election there was a fraud, but we don't look at ourselves. The fact that here in the UK, the current government only got like 33.8% of the vote, and the turnout was just over 50%. Have they really got some kind of a mandate? In the United States, one of the candidates for president was almost killed. I didn't see Venezuela or other countries having a go at the U.S. system. So what I'm trying to say is, let Venezuela be. I don't know what the truth is there. It's probably in between. Here in the UK as well, it's a powder keg. And why is that? Well, I've been here for 32 years, and I haven't seen the division within the main community of the UK, the native-born Englishmen, and people who come from other backgrounds. It's really ratcheting up. And I think the establishment, not just the Labour Party, but the Conservatives, they've got themselves to blame. And I think it's the old strategy of divide and conquer. And it makes us hate each other. And why do they do that? Well, because then we can ask government to help us, because people are waking up to the fact that government has lied to us for so long that we can't trust them. So they ratchet up the divide and conquer. I'm not saying what happened a few days ago in Southport is not a bad thing, and I understand why people would get angry about those little girls. But yeah, we need to keep our heads because if we don't, we'll give the powers that be the excuse to crack crack down on our liberties and freedom. Not that we have that much left. What else is happening in the world? Well, I remember back in the 70s when I was, before I was a teenager, hearing in the news about what was happening in the Middle East. And I thought to myself, is this ever going to end? Are these people ever going to make peace? And I don't think they will. And what's happening there as well is very dangerous for the whole world. And again, it's difficult to trust anything anyone says. And my strategy is to keep an eye on things and not judge anything. But be as it may, it's chaotic. It's chaotic. And as I've said many times before, all these are symptoms of financial collapse. Yes, it happened in France in the 1790s. And talking about France, to be honest, I have no interest in watching the Olympics, but I've heard about the opening ceremony. I didn't watch it. I don't watch any of that stuff. That's another divide and conquer there, I would say. Yeah, as I said, it's all to do with the finance, because the powers that be, they can feel that their fiat currency system is on its last legs, and if they lose control of that, they can't go around the world doing what they do, which is totally against civilization, I would say. When did we last see the respect for private property, for life? We're not seeing any of that, and I'm afraid we are deep in the winter, in the fourth turning, and Neil Howe talks about that. But it's not the end of the world, because it always turns around and we go into spring. But it's very chaotic. And according to Neil Howe, and I haven't finished the book, but I've started it, the winter in this fourth turning, which started after the '08 crisis, should end somewhere around 2030, maybe 2033. So I'm not trying to say that everything is going to collapse next week. I just think things are going to be more and more chaotic. And I think what I'm planning to do is to keep doing what I'm doing, trying to inform the public of my opinions, of the fact that sound money, honest weights and measures, morality, like the rule of law, respect for the individual is the right thing, because right now there's too much division, too much hate. So that's how I see things. And of course, in terms of the markets, it's getting very interesting too. Today we have the Fed. I don't think they're gonna cut rates. The Bank of Japan, actually, they raised rates today from 0.1 to 0.25. So they raised it by a quarter, 15 basis points, excuse me. But I think the Bank of Japan is 2 years too late. They should have started raising rates back when the rest of the world started raising rates. So they've screwed everything up. They said they're going to taper their QE, but not as much as people expected. So the Japanese yen is still in trouble. The Japanese economy is still in trouble, and the debt load is still troublesome. And the more divided the world gets as well in terms of the Middle East, the more people like Russia, China, and all the global South countries are going to try to get away from the dollar as much as possible. So I don't see inflation coming under control. Yes, they might be able to tinker with the data, the CPI data, and say that everything is fine. Here in the UK, they've done so much tinkering that despite the fact that we're supposedly at 2% inflation, the government is going to give a 22% pay rise over 2 years to junior doctors and a 5.5% pay rise for all the other public sector workers. So, yeah, I'm still a believer in the fact that gold and silver, physical gold and silver, there's no counterparty risk. What about investing? Well, in turbulent times like this, investing is very difficult. And I leave that up to you to decide where to invest. As I've said before, I have some of the miners. They're very particular investments, and I wouldn't bet my house on it. And yes, I think the last place you want to be is in government bonds, because the only way out, and it doesn't matter what party, what candidate, the only way out of this debt bubble that we have is for governments to keep inflating and ripping off the general public via currency debasement. And why do they do that? Well, because it makes the value of the debt be worth a lot less. I mean, here in the UK, I think there's still debt out there that was incurred during the Napoleonic Wars. And back then, I think the national debt went up to like 600 million pounds. Now 600 million pounds is nothing. So you can see how over time, if you keep inflating, the government and the people who can protect themselves, the top 1% or the top 0.1%, they make out like bandits, and you, the general public, continue to get fleeced. And I don't see that changing. So I wish I had better news about things, but yeah, we need to keep our heads, be positive. We as individuals, the best we can do is the right thing. The right thing for ourselves, our families, our community. Everything else is like out of our control. As we're seeing now, the world is chaotic. So with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. And I'm going to put a copy of the If poem, if you want to read the whole thing, in the description. So it's 8:17 a.m. London time. We got spot gold, and maybe the price of gold is not that relevant and important in this chaotic world, but we're still going to look at it. I still think all our currencies are going to fall a lot more versus gold, and yes, it will protect us, but it will mean that the world is getting more and more crazy. So anyway, we are at 24.18. Up $7. The high's been 25 and the low 03. Silver is at 28.57, up 20 cents. High's been 71, the low 22. The stock market is up overnight. I noticed though that late last night, after the close in New York, you had some results from Microsoft that weren't good, and the NASDAQ and the S&P all dropped quite a bit. But now everything's up, which is weird. The NASDAQ is now up 1.4%, and the S&P is up 0.82%. The currencies are pretty steady. The dollar did drop to 150.158 versus the yen, but we're now at 152.23. It's still down 1/3%. That's understandable because the Bank of Japan raised rates. The Fed today, of course, they come out at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Then there's a press conference starting at 2:30. Jay Powell will conduct that press conference. They're also going to release their projections today. Crude oil, that's up 2%. That's on the back of what's happening in the Middle East. Overnight, just heard news that the president or leader of Hamas has been assassinated in Tehran, Iran. We don't know who did it, but I guess we can imagine who did it. So that's not, that's putting, that's the powder keg in the Middle East, because if Iran gets involved, and even Turkey now is talking about getting involved in Lebanon. Lebanon, of course, Beirut was bombed yesterday by the Israelis. Real powder keg. So WTI is up 2% at 75.92, and Brent is at 79.50, up 1.8%. And the bond market, as I said, that's the last place I want to put my money in. Why? Well, because you're financing the powers that be by putting your money in bond markets. You're financing Janet Yellen. You're financing Rachel Reeves and their crazy policies. And you're also getting fleeced because currency debasement is a lot higher. The rate of currency debasement is a lot higher than what governments are providing you in terms of interest. And all these markets are manipulated anyway. And then if you earn interest on it, you have to pay tax. But anyway, the 10-year yield is unchanged at 4.15. The 2 years at 4.37. So there you go. With that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.